recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. AVs, clearly, from our discussion today and research otherwise, have the potential for extensive transformation. But we cannot fully realize the potential if we do not lead the world in this technology. I think we'd all agree with that. My legislation, the Safe Car Act, is included in Mr. Latta's draft we're discussing today. I also sent a bipartisan letter last week with Representative Dingell, Latta, and Veazey outlining the concerns with Chinese AV companies testing in the United States. It is frustrating to think that China will not allow American companies to any extensive nature test their AVs in China. When you stop and think about the competitive problem that is, but also the security problem of having more data collected make AVs better, day by day, drive by drive, think how much data the CCP is collecting on the United States and its citizens. That's a concern. I'm thankful that Secretary Buttigieg did respond to this letter publicly, and I think it's a concern that we have. So, Mr. Chairman, I guess I'm the chairman at this point in time. So there is no problem with unanimous consent to have that letter included in the record. I hear no objection. It's imperative that we approach this issue from both sides, boosting American AV leadership by offering regulatory certainty and protecting against national security and competitive risks through increasing China's concerns and addressing those concerns. My legislation seeks to address the latter. Mr. Koopman and all the panel, thank you for being here. Do you support the language in the discussion draft that I authored, which would give the Secretary of Transportation authority to prohibit or limit testing vehicles within the U.S., depending on whether companies are under the control of the CCP or if companies within China pose a threat to the security of the United States?
Sir, I'm here to talk about safety, and I don't really have an opinion on that topic.
I'm concerned about that, and we could talk about that further.
I'd love to follow up with you and understand more.
Yeah.
At this point,
I know that you have been a consultant to numerous companies, including, I believe, some Chinese companies as well, but we'll leave that for further discussion.
No, sir, I'm not consulting to any Chinese company.
I'm interested with your work with the Voluntary Standards Committee. Are there Chinese companies that participate in this? And second, given their numbers, do they have an outsized role on development of the standards?
There are Chinese representatives on all the standards I'm aware of. I don't have a list for some of the ISO standards I work on. For sure, there are Chinese participants in UL 4600. They absolutely do not have an outsized influence. They're not calling the shots by any stretch. It's the direction is set by the U.S. and by Europe.
Yeah. Well, the concern is that there are Chinese involved. Let me move on to the next question. Turning to a separate issue, I'm an avid motorcycle guy, co-chair of the Congressional Motorcycle Caucus, lifetime member of the American Motorcycle Association. As I said, true autonomous vehicles will offer many safety benefits, but many in the motorcycle community are concerned the technology is able to properly detect and protect motorcyclists on the road. We're very different from pedestrians and bicyclists because we are in and amongst the traffic. Mr. Shapiro, how are AV companies considering motorcyclists in their safety tests, and how does the technology used by level 4 and 5 autonomous vehicles differ from those in self-proclaimed full driving mode when it comes to motorcycle awareness and safety?
Thank you, Mr. Walberg. My understanding is that they are taking into account motorcyclists, bicyclists, and they don't have blind spots on self-driving vehicles as opposed to what human drivers have in many vehicles. So it'll definitely be safer for motorcyclists in a self-driving environment. And it's even getting safer today before we get there, just with active collision avoidance, things like that. So motorcyclists are identifiable on, my understanding is, most self-driving vehicles today.
They're out amongst the traffic, unlike bicyclists and pedestrians to a greater degree.
Absolutely.
and going in between. So it is a concern, and I hope we continue to address that. I appreciate your response, and
Could
with
I
that,
come back to your China question?
I think I've run out of time. I'd love to have you come back to the China question, but we'll talk about it later.
Yield to Mrs. Dingle.
I now yield